Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. And I want to say welcome to Monday, June 12th, the St. John City Council meeting. Can't believe that June's half over. Anyway, I'd like to start off this evening with a land acknowledgement, and Councillor Harris is going to read that tonight for us.
The land on which the city of St. John, or Menaquest, is situated is the traditional territory of the Wolastoqey. The Wolastoqey, along with their indigenous neighbors, the Mi'kmaq, the Passamaquoddy, signed peace and friendship treaties with the British Crown in the 1700s that protected their rights to lands and resources. Let's pause and reflect.
Okay, I'd like to ask everyone to please stand for the national anthem. Okay, next item, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next item on the agenda is 2.1. That's approval of the minutes of May the 23rd.
Approval of minutes of May 23rd, Councillor Harris and the deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next is the approval of the agenda. There is one addition from Committee of the Whole, and that would be item 17.1. The title is Terms of Settlement with GE Barbers, Inc.
Okay, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda. Councillor Hickey and the deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next, disclosures of conflicts of interest, if there are any.
Councillor Radwan, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a conflict on 9.4.
9.4, okay, thank you. Councillor Stewart, over to you.
I'm going to recuse myself from 9.4 as well.
Thank you. Okay, seeing none others. Next item, City Clerk.
Next item is, actually, we are now after 6:30, so we would need to move into our public hearing, which is advertised for 6:30. And the first of the public hearings is item 9.1, and this is for a property at 26 Foley Court, repeal of previous Section 39 conditions.
Commissioner Hamilton, over to you for the introduction, please.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. Before you this evening for public hearing is an application which was submitted by Michael Fulkins for Section 59 amendment for a property located at 26 Foley Court on the city's east side. The application is seeking to discharge a Section 59 condition that would facilitate the creation of an additional dwelling unit that is intended to permit incremental residential density in a stable residential neighborhood. The application has been evaluated by staff and the Planning Advisory Committee, and before you are recommendations to approve the application. And with that, I'm pleased to introduce Thomas Llewellyn, who's a planner with our team, to deliver the presentation on behalf of staff.
Thank you. Thomas, over to you.
Thank you. Oops. Okay. The applicant is seeking to, 26 Foley Court. The applicant is seeking to remove existing Section 59 conditions that limit the property to 3 dwelling units in order to create a 4th unit. The site plan details the requisite number of parking spots, which is 4, within the existing driveway as required. The subject site is located off the well-traveled Loch Lomond Road on Foley Court, which terminates in a cul-de-sac with townhomes. The immediate neighborhood is a mix of single-family, duplexes, and townhomes. The property is within walking distance to a few shops, parks, as well as daycares and schools. The subject site is located within the stable residential designation of the municipal plan, although it is on the edge of the commercial corridor designation that begins roughly at the intersection of Loch Lomond Road and Bayside Drive. The property is currently zoned low-rise residential, which permits up to 6 dwelling units. There are imposed Section 59 conditions that limit the building to 3 units, but this was done at a time when the neighborhood had less overall density in order to keep the character of the neighborhood. In the last 20 years, the neighborhood has evolved to include higher densities. On May 1st, letters were sent to all property owners within 100 meters of the subject property, and as of this presentation, there were no letters received from property owners. PAC and staff recommend removing the existing Section 59 conditions to allow for the RL zone.
All right, thank you, Thomas, and welcome aboard to St. John.
Thank you.
All right, so I will now open the public hearing, and I'll ask if there is anyone here this evening that would like to speak against the application for 26 Foley Crescent. Is there anyone here who would like, Foley Court. Is there anyone here who would like to speak against the application for 26 Foley Court? And I'll ask for a third time if there's anyone here who would like to speak against the application for Foley Court. Okay, I'll ask if there's anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the application for 26 Foley Court. Anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the application for 26 Foley Court? And I'll ask for the third time if there's anyone here who would like to speak in favor of an application for 26 Foley Court. Okay, well, hearing none, I will close the public hearing, and I will ask my team if anyone has any questions for staff. And if not, I'll take a motion. Count the deputy and Councillor Hickey. City Clerk, do you want to give us the motions?
Yes, so in this case, there's just one motion required, and that's to repeal the previous Section 39-59 conditions for 26 Foley Court.
Excellent. So I have a mover and a seconder for that. On the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Excellent. Thank you. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is item 9.2 on your agenda, and this item is again for a repeal of previous Section 59 and 39 conditions at 693 Manawaganish Road.
Commissioner Hamilton, over to you for the introduction.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. So before you this evening for public hearing is an application which was submitted by Kevin Matheson for a Section 59 amendment for a property located at 693 Manawaganish Road on the city's west side. The application seeks to discharge a planning condition which would allow the creation of an additional dwelling unit to permit incremental residential density in a stable residential neighborhood. The application has been evaluated by staff and the Planning Advisory Committee, and before you are recommendations to approve the application. And with that, I'm pleased to introduce Thomas Llewellyn again, a planner with our team, to deliver tonight's presentation on behalf of staff.
Thank you. Welcome back, Thomas. Over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is going to be very familiar. It's more or less the exact same thing. 693 Manawaganish Road, the applicant is seeking to remove the existing Section 59 conditions that limit the property to 3 dwelling units in order to create a 4th in the basement. This site plan details the requisite number of parking spots, which is 4, within the existing driveway, as well as the existing parking located within the building's garage. The subject site is located on the arterial Manawaganish Road, directly across from both St. Rose and Barnhill Memorial Schools. The immediate neighborhood is a mix of single-family duplexes and apartments. The property is within walking distance to restaurants, shops, and parks, as well as daycares and schools. The subject site is located within the stable residential designation, although it is on the edge of the medium to high density residential designation in the municipal plan that begins at the intersection of Manawaganish Road and Catherwood Street. The property is currently zoned low-rise residential, which permits up to 6 dwelling units. There are imposed Section 59 conditions that limit the building to 3 units, but again, this was done at a time when the neighborhood had less overall density. The residential zoning in the neighborhood is a mix of 2-unit residential and low-rise residential, with general commercial and local commercial making up the commercial aspects along Manawaganish Road. On May 1st, letters were sent to all property owners within 100 meters of the subject site, and as of this presentation, no letters or comments were received. PAC and staff recommendation is to recommend removing the existing Section 59 conditions on the property.
All right, thank you. I will open the public hearing now, and I'll ask if there's anyone here who would like to speak against the application for 693 Manawaganish Road. I'll ask again if there's anyone here who would like to speak against the application for 693 Manawaganish Road. I'll ask a third time if there's anyone here who would like to speak against the application for 693 Manawaganish Road. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the application for 693 Manawaganish Road? Anyone here in favor of the application at 693 Manawaganish Road? And I'll ask for the third time if there's anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the application for 693 Manawaganish Road. Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. And I'll ask my team if anyone has any questions for Thomas this evening. And if not, Councillor Killen, over to you.
This actually may be for Commissioner Hamilton. It's more out of curiosity around, this is great that we're seeing 3 units turn into 4 units. So is this as a result of some of the work we're trying to do to encourage people to expand and include more density into their current existing properties, would you say? Or is it just happens to be happenstance?
So it is an increasing trend that we're seeing. We had put Section 59 limitations in the past. So again, the zone itself allows up to 6, but we were in the past more hesitant to allow for higher densities. Now we're seeing the trend of these people coming to repeal again and again, and so we're taking steps to make sure that we don't impose unnecessary Section 59 conditions so it doesn't waste time and money on something that should be a slam dunk, especially whenever we have a need for housing.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no other questions, I would take a motion to repeal the previous conditions. Councillor Killen and Councillor Ogden on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is our third public hearing, and this is 9.3 on your agenda, a proposed zoning bylaw amendment at 33 Birch Grove Terrace.
Thank you. Commissioner Hamilton, over to you again for the intro.
Yes, good evening, Your Worship, members of council. So before you this evening for public hearing is an application which was submitted by He Peng Luo for rezoning for a property located at 33 Birch Grove Road in the Milledgeville neighborhood. The application is seeking to rezone the property from 1-unit residential to low-rise residential in order to legalize a 3rd unit in an existing residential property to bring it in conformance with the city's zoning bylaw. And this application would also allow incremental density within a stable residential neighborhood. The application has been evaluated by staff and the Planning Advisory Committee, and before you are a recommendation from staff to approve the application. And the Planning Advisory Committee is recommending denial on the application on the basis of concerns related in part to enforcement action on the property. Council's role in the process is to assess the suitability of the proposal from the perspective of land use and compliance with the municipal plan. And with that as an introduction, I am pleased to introduce Yeva Matson, who's a planner with our community planning team, to deliver tonight's presentation on behalf of staff.
All right, over to you, Ava.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. So as said, I'm here to present to you 33 Birch Grove Terrace for rezoning. The applicant is proposing to rezone from R1 to RL to legalize a third unit on the property. It's a little bit confusing, but the applicant converted the former 1-unit building into 3. They added a second unit on the bottom floor and then added a third unit in what was once a pool building, which former owners had converted into extra residential space. The current zone would allow for that second unit legally as a secondary suite, but does not allow for that third unit, which is why we are seeing the application today. There would be no changes to the exterior of the building or the footprint. So despite concerns from neighbors and PAC, the site would conform to the RL zone. It would have enough parking to support the units. There are 6 spaces on the property as of now. The drawings are a little confusing, but there's 2 stalls in the garage, 2 tandem stalls out front of that garage, and then there is a second driveway that goes lower grade underneath the garage, so it allows for 2 more tandem spaces. So 33 Birch Grove Terrace is located in Milledgeville. In the intermediate area of the subject site, there's a mixture of residential uses in the form of single and semi-detached homes, as well as larger townhouse dwellings off of Tudor Lane. The wider neighborhood contains a mixture of residential densities, as well as a diverse types of commercial and community zoning, including the University of New Brunswick, St. John campus, the St. John Regional Hospital, and the Shannock Seniors Residential Complex. In the image above, you can see the site and the neighborhood. The first image shows you 33 Birch Grove Terrace from the street, and that would be the first unit on that level. The second unit, or second photo, sorry, shows the rear of the property, and the second unit is on that lower level, and then the third unit is on the far right in that former pool house. In the image above, you can see the parking situation. As said, there was 2 in the garage, 2 before it, and then the second driveway, which goes to a lower grade on the property, has 2 tandem stalls as well. And then this is Birch Grove itself, looking west towards Tudor Lane and those townhouses, and then looking east towards the end of the street, which ends in a proper bulb. The site is designated stable residential in the municipal plan, and while a density target is not provided for our stable residential areas, housing of almost every form and density can be found. The proposal does meet the goals in the policy around providing densification in areas with existing municipal services, and it reflects existing building typologies found in the area. With no changes to the exterior of the building, it meets the intent of the municipal plan in reflecting that character of the neighborhood. The current zoning is 1 unit, but the area comprises a variety of residential zones, including 2-unit low-rise and mid-rise. The proposed low-rise is still considered low density, but it would bring that third unit into compliance with the zoning bylaw. Staff are recommending a Section 59 as well, which would limit further development to a maximum of 4 units. That 4, instead of a cap on the proposed 3, would just create some flexibility in the future, which would help align with the goals of the Affordable Housing Action Plan by permitting innovative housing models to expand the housing supply. Staff reviewed the zoning standards for the RL zone, and the site concluded that the existing building has the capacity in the future to hold 4 units and still comply with that RL standard. And due to challenging topography as well as a Wawa buffer zone, only minimal changes to the exterior could be expected if a 4th unit were introduced in the future. So this does help with a little more flexibility and density in the future while helping to keeping that increase minimal to help conform with the neighborhood context. So letters were sent to all landowners within 100 meters on the subject property on May 1st. I do have to correct the numbers here. We received a couple more letters. We are now at a total of 9 letters from the neighborhood, 5 against and 4 in support. The applicant also did go door-to-door and delivered letters to the neighbors before PAC and after PAC with details of the project. So PAC is recommending denial of the application, as said, due to concerns regarding parking and the open enforcement case. Despite PAC's recommendation, staff are still recommending to rezone the site to low-rise residential to legalize that third unit, but also with a Section 59 to kind of help keep that density still minimal. And that is everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I will open the public hearing, and I'll ask if there's anyone here who would like to speak against 33 Birch Grove Terrace. Come forward. And I'll ask you to give us your name and approximately where you live so that we have a reference as to how this is going to impact you.
Well, my name is Kathy Eastwood,
Okay,
and
yeah, we
I
read your
live-
letters, Kathy.
What?
We saw your letters.
Yeah, I'm sorry. They're long, but
Yeah.
I feel very strongly about this. I live at 28 Birch Grove Crescent, or if you read the paper, the across the street neighbors. You've read our letter, so I'm not going to regurgitate my letter, but I am going to expand on a few things. First of all, I'd like to clarify a statement that was in the PAC report that stated that it says that she also voiced concerns about the propane tanks. Ms. Eastwood said there would welcome density increase, but would prefer to see the maximum number of units capped at 3. What I said was that we had no idea about this Section 59 before coming in front of the PAC. And as part of that, what I said is I respectfully ask that if it is approved, that they restrict it to 3 units because of the issues that I've raised. So that's what I'd like to say first of all. And sorry, I'm nervous and this is not my usual, I like to be in the background.
I do too, Kathy, but I'm out front tonight, and so are you.
Thank you. So, like I said, Eric and I are new to this process, and we don't know all the ins and outs of the rezoning and the bylaws, and this is my first time even being part of anything like this. We are professionals in our fields, and we both live in St. John, and we both were born here in St. John. We've lived most of our life here, except for a small time when we had to move outside the city to take care of ailing parents. Myself, as some of you may know, I was raised that you follow the rules. That if you follow the rules, and that ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So, in addition to this process being backward from the beginning, the fact that it took 9 months that for 9 months they were able to complete the work, rent the units, collect rents for the units, which I would like to point out do not qualify under the affordable housing that the city has as part of their plan. They were able to do this in relative anonymity. And sorry, I'm not good at saying that word, but what I mean by that is as soon as we came forward, we were in the paper as the across the street neighbors being against us, and we received some negative impact from that. While they were able to carry on, collect rents, and away they went. The owners have made a number of misleading statements to the inspector during PAC meeting, to the inspector during the PAC meeting, and in letters that we received from them, which I believe calls into question their compliance now and in future in regards to current and additional units. For example, the third unit was done by the previous owners. It wasn't converted into a residential unit by the previous owners. It was originally approved under a variance as a pool house right on the line of the property between theirs and their neighbors. It was a pool house is something you use on occasion, once in a while. You're not looking at your neighbor's front yard or living room, sorry. Then on top of that, the next owners, they fill in the pool and they made it into a gym. Again, something that you're not using 24/7. But as a residential home and a residential unit, it is something that is 24/7, and the people next door now have somebody basically living in their backyard. Do they live there? Originally, they said yes at the PAC meeting, but when asked a second time, they acknowledged that they actually don't live in this property.
Kathy, I'm just going to interrupt you briefly there. Tonight, what we want to do as a council is we're looking at a land use. The compliance issue and et cetera, like that's being looked after by staff. So we are looking at land use and zoning. So we're going to ask ourselves questions like, does this fit in the neighborhood to have that, extra unit? How will it impact the neighborhood? Are there other, multiple units within the neighborhood? So that's the kind of
Okay.
question. So I'm just trying to keep you to the land use.
No, that's
if
fine, I
all right.
understand. Like I said, I have
No,
no
that's
idea how
fine.
this works,
That's
right?
fine.
Like, I'm being very, very transparent because that's how I am. But, so to answer your question as far as land use goes, there are no, we are on a short 9-house cul-de-sac. There are no other houses that, on this cul-de-sac that have a second unit. And so as far as land use goes, changing it into a 3-unit, non-owner occupied property makes it different from the neighborhood. Adding a 4th unit and more cars is also going to create more parking and issues like that. So I understand the city wanting, in fact, I'm fully for the city increasing density and all that stuff, but you can't force every neighborhood to do that. So that's, I guess, what I'm looking at is like, I bought this house in this neighborhood to live in a nice, quiet cul-de-sac where I could be with my neighbors, right? Like, we went out, we actually snow blew their driveway for them and for the tenants that are there because we want to be in a neighborhood. We don't want to be in a transient place where people come and people go, right? So hopefully that addresses your use of land. It is, I acknowledge, like my property is very large. I bought it because of COVID and needing extra space for offices because I work from home. But there are no other properties on that street that have 2 units. And these people, I guess my issue is, and I came here tonight to talk about the enforcement process and how it's backwards and how we've been made to feel like we're the bad people here. But again, sorry, not understanding. That's kind of what I prepared. So I guess as far as the land use goes, absolutely the city, but I also want to, I guess what I want to say is, yes, our street doesn't have multi-units. At the end of the street is Tudor Lane with multi-units. At the Tudor or the townhouses up street, Tudor's all single or double duplexes and garden homes. There are 3 brand new huge apartment buildings behind us. There's a new apartment building with 80 units going at the end of our street, and there's another, I don't even know how many, off University Avenue. This change does not help the affordability, because we need affordable housing in this city, but this doesn't meet it. It does not meet the affordable housing. At $1,800 or more a month, these people are not paying for affordable housing. Did I miss something?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Like I said, we do have it, and we've got a hard copy of your letter here too as well.
Yeah, and I apologize. I did not understand this was only about land use and,
Yeah, from our perspective at this table tonight. Yeah.
okay.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, I will ask again if there's anyone here who would like to speak against the application. I'll get you to come forward and give us your name.
Eric Eastwood, the other half of the dynamic duo. For the land use question, I had a whole bunch of different remarks that I left up there written out and having to go here off the top of my head. But as Kathy said, we bought this house because of one issue, COVID. We rented for about 5 years before we moved into our previous house, which was on De Weber Terrace, another cul-de-sac in Milledgeville. And 3 of us working from home in a 3-bedroom house, just not enough office space. So we did some research, looked around, bought this house. And one of the problems that we did have on November was there was a number of 3 or 4 in-law suites past our property. So we have experience with a large amount of traffic on a very, very similar, I think there's maybe 12 or 14 houses on November as opposed to Birch Grove. So we have the experience of what that traffic does to a small cul-de-sac. Every one of the, well, not all the houses, of the 9 houses that are on Birch Grove Terrace, 6 of them are big enough for 4 units. Ours, by far, we could put in townhouses. We're on a double lot. Our property is around, if you include the garage, I think 5,000 square feet. It's a huge property. We could easily accommodate 6 units in our property. But what would that do to that land use of that little cul-de-sac? It would turn that into a freeway. And we've experienced it over in November, even though we basically sold our November house to our kid, or one of our children, and they got out of renting into that when we moved to this one with our daughter. So the land use for places that have enough capacity for traffic, we're on the 3rd cul-de-sac. Hill Heights cul-de-sac, Tudor Lane cul-de-sac, Birch Grove Terrace cul-de-sac. Each getting shorter and shorter and shorter until we're at us. So when you're looking at that, I think you have to take that into account when you talk about land use. You don't put unless you want to turn it into, like, say, a freeway, you don't put a 12-unit building at the end of that little cul-de-sac and expect that there's not going to be some sort of traffic jam on that street at some point. So that's the, yes, I can see going to leaving it at R1 and allowing 2nd unit. I have no problem with that. We probably might do that at some point with our house. It actually is almost configured for that. We have to put in an extra door and we're done. But right now it's not split up. We have a 7-bedroom house, 3 offices. You know, it's just nice for working from home because we are professionals who have private and privileged conversations that we can't let other people hear. So we needed the space. And being on a quiet street as opposed to this traffic that was going on November made a lot of sense to us. We've spent our time and purchased this for that reason. And adding a 3rd unit, and possibly a 4th, will dramatically change that little chunk of space in the overall plan of the city. Like on Hill Heights, just before you turn on Tudor, there are, I think, 4 or 5 lots that are R2. None of them are R2. They are all singles, right? They all up on Tudor, it's all R2 except for the townhouses. Great, wonderful. Do not have a problem with all that. But when you get down to those last little spots that are at the end of cul-de-sacs, like there are numerous ones through Milledgeville, to have 3, 4 units going into those just does not make sense, even though it sort of meets the city's land use agreements. So, and there's been a whole bunch of safety issues that are in our letter, like, and on Friday, for example, this most egregious one is with the propane tanks that we've complained about in our letter. They're too close to an existing source. A car is parked within 10 feet of them. And on Friday, they had a fuel delivery where the propane truck was parked in front of the fire hydrant because of on-street parking. Because there is now 5 cars, because they are not low-rent housing, they are upscale housing, and one unit has 2 cars, another unit has 2 cars, and another unit has 1. So the 3-car parking rule goes out the window. So those are the main reasons that I think the land use for this property should be capped as an R1 with an in-law suite.
Thank you, Eric. Does anyone have any questions for Eric? Counselor Sullivan has a question for you. Mr. Eastwood?
Thanks, Your Worship, through you. Eric, your wife mentioned that you're kind enough as a neighbor to go over and help move snow in the wintertime. Staff had a diagram up showing 6 cars parked in the driveways. Can you comment on winter parking across the street?
Yeah, that was in our letter, and wasn't going to regurgitate that. But there is that second driveway they talk about. That second driveway was used once last winter. The person got stuck and they never went down it again. So to say that there's 2 or 3 parking spots below the garage is a fallacy. It is a relatively steep, there's not really much land. Like the driveway, if you looked at the picture, there's the driveway here, and then you drop off. So if you go down there, you don't have any space to slide. So it doesn't make sense for them to park down there unless they, and which they haven't done, cleared it consistently and for what's going on. Also, in the bulb, the first winter we lived there, cleaned out perfectly with a big truck from the city. Now we're getting plowed out when a little truck shows up because of the on-street parking. So now we have concerns about fire safety, delivery of materials. People now have to back out of trucks because there's just not, that bulb is there, but there's a basketball court and 2 cars parked in it most days. Or basketball net, not court. So it's just, the use is just not right.
Okay, thank you. Deputy, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Eric?
Mr.
can I ask you
Eastwood?
I didn't see this.
So you referenced that during the winter months, 1 car went down there and everyone back down. Can you explain to me how long this has been occupied, this house? With
This,
three?
we moved in July 2021. The current owners bought the house in November 2020. We noticed the renovations taking place starting in the summer, as outlined in the letter.
Of 21?
Mhm.
Of 21, the summer
Of
of 21?
22.
Of
In the
22.
summer of 22, a big truck showed up, a 53-foot trailer. I got it. Go. 53-foot trailer showed up with a stacked high with materials. So construction started August-ish, maybe July, through to when we made our complaint, when the 3 mailboxes showed up. And then, when the 3 mailboxes showed up in November-ish, October, November, is when the occupancy happened. And as it was in the PAC report, or PAC meeting, the owners moved out in December and other people moved in. So from about October on, there's been 3 units in use.
So from October of 2022, it's been a full house.
Yeah, and that's when we made our complaint,
Okay, thank you.
because of the mailboxes, and we went, hey, what's going on?
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, great. Okay. I will ask again for the second time. I'm going to stop my stopwatch. I think I
We're
think
done?
that's it. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I'll ask again if there's anyone here who would like to speak against the application for 33 Birch Grove Terrace. And I'll ask for the third time if there's anyone here who would like to speak against the application for 33 Birch Grove Terrace. Okay, I will ask if there's anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor of the application at 33 Birch Grove Terrace. Get you to come to the mic and just give us your names and your address.
So my name is Shu Li, and I'm here to translate for him.
Okay, oh,
He would
okay.
like to say something before I say.
Thank you. Can we, and we'll get his name?
His name is Haipeng Luo.
Okay.
My name is Haipeng Luo. Because my English is limited, so I asked my friend to translate.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's good.
So I'm pretty sure you may have his letter, but according to his request, I have to read this for him. So Is that okay if I read
That's
this
okay.
list?
I've got him, we allow 10 minutes for each speaker, and so I've got and so that would include like whatever you want to say and then whatever counselors would want to ask. So just for that time.
Okay,
So
thank
go
you.
ahead.
So my name is Haipeng Luo. My wife and I are new immigrants. We love the city of St. John and our community and neighbors. I invested money in this region, and my wife does bookkeeping and office management for us. She was also the representative of the Newcomers Bring Value campaign, and her face pictures are right in front of the City Hall bus stop. And we believe that cities growth, and regardless how hard the life can be for new immigrants with language barriers, we love our life here. I'm a bit of disappointed that our good intention was being put into hearings. I believe that our neighbors are all friendly. We added values to this property after we purchased it, since our life plan has changed. We want to contribute to our life and meet the needs of our current housing crisis, so that these beautiful units can be lived and enjoyed by great people who need places to settle in our city. We would like to talk about some points regarding the previous hearing. Firstly, the propane tank's location was chosen by the fuel company, which were professional at their location of choice to ensure its safety and compliance with its regulation. Although we understand it may not be that pretty as you may visually see, however, it is safe as it's certified by the professionals. With the understanding of the neighbors' concerns on the look from the outside, we are willing to landscape its appearance at the best capacity we can. Secondly, about the parking space, we have been obeying the guidance of the city's planning department to address this problem, and we actively cooperate with the planning department to implement their recommendations as any may arise from the hearings. We would like to explain the issue of why we did not apply for rezoning before everything was done. First, we admit that we were short of knowledge in this matter. Otherwise, we would not have placed 3 mailboxes to show the public that more than one family lived in this house. It is clear that we did not intentionally hide anything. We did not realize that even interior innovations of our own house required a permit. We mistakenly thought that as long as the changes did not change the shape of a house, it did not need an application to be filled to the planning department. Also, in the case of rental properties, it is our understanding that simply reporting of our earned income on our tax return would be good enough, and we do pay taxes on time. Second, I completely understand members' discomfort with getting all the work done before seeking the necessary applications. I must admit that I was very surprised and nervous when I got that what we're doing was illegal when government official first visited. I felt a deep sense of regret, so on the same day, I initiated contact right away with the city's official and received the instructions and followed them step by step. People from the planning department also went to the site to check and provided us with invaluable directions and suggestions. We have been very grateful for their help. We didn't know what to do at first. The whole experience has been a learning process for us as we needed to improve ourselves and actively enroll in our community. And so far, we have been working in conjunction with the enforcement team and obeying all processes after permitting was clarified for us. And when the rezoning is complete, we will be applying for building permits and inspections to make sure all the work is correct. Finally, I would like to express that I am an immigrant and an investor. I am eager to invest in St. John. I believe my current action aligns with the current housing crisis. I have invested approximately 100,000 cash in upgrading equipment and renovating the interior of the house, providing tenants with comfortable living conditions. Additionally, I have replaced the old electrical heating with the newer propane heating. which is not only more environmentally friendly, but also significantly reduces electricity consumption for the community. This, in return, helps me to save cost for future. My tenants have also expressed their satisfaction and gratitude with their living and renting experiences. If such a beneficial investment is not approved, I wonder how many new residents would be willing to invest future in St. John. Of course, we will continue to learn how to work with the city and build or place a better community for all. Here, I kindly ask our council members to carefully consider our application. I sincerely appreciate your attention and time. Sincerely, Hapeng Luo.
All right, I do have a couple of questions for Hapang Lo, and I have Councilor Redwan up first.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. So I'm not really going to get into the enforcement because I think it doesn't matter where you move to, you have to investigate before you start doing things. But my question is are you currently living in the property?
Oh, do you mean living in this property?
Yes.
No, he's not.
So are you currently living in the city to manage the property?
Yes, he's living here.
Okay. Yep, that's my only questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Killen.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you, to the applicant. Thanks for your presentation. I'm wondering if this is your first project or if there are other projects that you're working on.
It's his third project.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sir, when you bought the property, did you buy it with the idea that you were going to live there? Or did you buy it as an investor that you were going to increase the occupancy of the building and rent it out?
您买的时候是想要住那儿吗？还是为了投资而买的？我当时住了2年以后，我就觉得很大，
在这个房子住过2年。
对。
Before he rezoning his house, he has lived there for more than 2 years. So he thought this is a really big house. Maybe I could put more units in there.
So when you bought the house, you realized what it was zoned for? Single dwelling?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. When you purchased the house, did you realize when you purchased it that it was zoned for one family?
在你买这房子之前，你意识到它是只给一个家庭提供的房子吗？当时我买的时候只有一个家庭。
Yeah, when he purchased the house, he believed that's just for one family.
Okay, so he realized he needed to get a rezoning for it to make it more than one family.
Let me clarify.
Sure, take your time.
买这个房子的时候，你有意识到可以把这房间给它重新规划吗？还是就是它什么样就住什么样的？ 就是说我住进去以后，我觉得它很大，这个要说清楚。然后我认为它是更适合在这3个单元。
Okay, so when he moved into the house, he realized this is a very big space, so it might be better to rezone for more units.
Okay, so you knew you had to rezone. To do what you're doing, you needed to rezone. You knew that when you moved in?
你是在搬进去的时候就把它换成了3间，还是搬出去之后？我搬进去以后就在改造了。
Yeah, he started rezoning the house soon after he moved in.
Okay, I think what the counselor's asking is that when to rezone is to change formally with the city, the use of it. And I think he's confusing rezoning with remaking it or remodeling it into X number of units. So he would need to, like this, did he realize what the counselor's asking, what the deputy's asking is, did he realize he needed to complete this process here and come to council before he started to do the work?
之前有意识到过，在你改完之后要来这儿跟他们去申请吗？我当时不知道。
He was not aware of that matter.
Okay. All right. Deputy, do you have any other questions?
No, that's fine.
Okay. All right, so I think that's it for Okay, I think we're good there. So no other questions for you? That's great, thank you. Okay, so I'll ask again if there's anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the application at 33 Birch Grove Terrace. And I'll ask once more if there's anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the application to rezone 33 Birch Grove Terrace. So seeing no one, I will now close the public hearing. And I will ask my team if they have any questions for staff. I see Councillor Radwan has a question for you. Eva?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question, because I'm very familiar with the area. I used to play on the street. And the cul-de-sac is a little bit tight there. So I'm just wondering, because of the way the process has gone, where there wouldn't be building permits, would fire have already, did fire say whether or not it was safe to have that many units there yet?
So we did circulate it to our fire and safety department, and they did have no concerns.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other, oh, I do see another question. Councillor Hickey, over to you.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just quickly through you to staff. In terms of snow removal, there's a suggestion that we switch trucks because of extra parking on the street, but I don't know that that's the case. I think we switch trucks because of the nature of the street. Mike, can you confirm that?
Commissioner Hugenholtz?
Through you to Councillor Hickey. We did make some changes to our winter management plan that included moving to one-ton trucks to service a lot of kind of smaller or dead-end streets. So I suspect that if there was a change, it was more related to this larger change rather than because of one or two more cars parking on the cul-de-sac.
Thank you. Councillor Harris, over to you.
Yeah, Your Worship, it's just a comment, a general comment, just for public consumption that's here, because there is concerns about following the rules, and as somebody who's, been in these job sites, and you have to try to follow as best you can, and sometimes you get close to the line when you're doing a renovation that may need a permit, may not. This certainly did. And there's this perception that they're going to get away with bad behavior here, and I don't think that's true, because anytime we have our inspectors go in, if the building's already done and it's occupied, and I'm speaking specifically to the concern that you were mentioning about them collecting rents, which is definitely offside. If they have to rip out drywall to inspect studding and electrical, that is a major cost. There will be penalties, there'll be costs, there'll be extra costs for all kinds of things that ideally you wouldn't have to incur. So it is certainly a bad idea to pursue, people who are worried about this setting a precedent or anything like that. It's not a good precedent to set. But at the same time, we're looking at a cul-de-sac here, and I get that there's traffic concerns, but we are an evolving city and we are a growing city. And I think it's worth remembering that as we change the use of some of these areas, as we increase density or we don't, that also feeds back information to this corporation for us to increase services, right? So I get the concern that there may be traffic concerns and there's problems with plowing, but that's all information that our staff are going to take and digest and look at that area as well for increased services in the future. I can't say that we're going to increase services, but I just think it's important to mention that because we do have to change our zoning in the city on these fronts to accommodate our growth pressures. So anyway, just a comment I wanted to make, Your Worship, because I know there's some banter back and forth on some of those fronts.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Back to the deputy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just on piggybacking on Councillor Harris, so I guess what he's saying is that the owner obviously has no idea that you just can't put an apartment building behind a house in the city, which I think a realtor would have been able to explain to them, this is a single dwelling. So I think that's kind of a mistake there. How many units, in your opinion, don't just ballpark, have been built over the last number of years on Tudor Lane and behind Tudor Lane there in that whole area? And you can even throw the one in on Milledgeville Avenue.
I can't speak fully to that, but I do believe that most of those townhouses are newer, as well as some of the duplexes. So it is definitely it's an evolving area for sure. The density has increased a lot in that area.
Right.
Just looking at the higher density buildings, just one step further than that too, like they're still being built 80 units and the like, so.
Yeah, the change has been dramatic, especially with the high-rise apartment building. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. So I will ask, I have no more questions. I'm going to ask the city clerk for the motions that are required, unless anyone wants to give me a motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. So in this case, we require two motions, first reading by title and second reading of the bylaw by title.
Anyone want to make a motion, one way or the other? Councillor Harris is moving that approve first reading by title, and Councillor Killen. And so I have some questions. I have Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess my concern with this rezoning is nothing to do with the whole compliance conversation at all. It really circles around parking. Currently, there are 3 units in the building, and in my opinion, and what letters have stated is 3 units in the building aren't holding the vehicles in the driveways that are supplied, especially in the winter, especially on a priority 4 street. And what's before us isn't 3 units. What's before us is 4 units as a maximum. So that's a concern for me in this one spot. And I certainly realize that zoning is changing and our city has to change, but then you've got to look to see if our infrastructure will support the changes in the areas we're looking to support the change in. This is certainly a neighborhood with a short street with 9 very large houses on it. And if we were conservative and capped them all, if this became a neighborhood of change and we had 36 units on that short little street, and somebody mentioned about, these aren't low-end, likely 1 vehicle per unit spots. I can't imagine seeing it on that street. So for that reason, I'll be voting against.
Okay, so there is a motion on the floor. And if you're ready. Oh. Do we not have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Harris and Councillor Killen?
Okay.
Okay, so I will call the question then. All in favor of approval of first reading by title? I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay. And opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 opposed? Okay, so the motion fails.
Can we just make sure to call the names?
Wait, no. Oh, what? Okay, I didn't anticipate voting on this. Okay. All right, who's against this? Who's against the motion? Councillor Sullivan? Councillor Ogden? The deputy? Councillor Norton? And Councillor Lowe? Before I make a decision on this, would my councillors be prepared to, the nays, at least give me a bit of background of why they are against it? When we have a motion, if you're going with the flow, it's easy, but if you're going to vote against it, I think at the end of the day, you need to have, so Deputy, I'll go over to you first.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, no, I think that's perfectly reasonable. I agree with everything Councillor Sullivan said. I mean, we've been really, really pushing development and growth and to the nth degree. And that's why I asked the question about that particular area, because there's been a heck of a lot of growth there. And, at some point, you get a little neighborhood like that, to Gary's point, if everybody in the neighborhood did that, you wouldn't be able to park any cars on the street. There'd be no room for cars to go in and out. And that's only one issue. So I think that unfortunately, the property was bought with the intention of, enlarging it and making it into a rental pop is an investment, fair enough. But, it should have been checked out as to what the zoning was. And before any money was submitted into it, it should have had the rezoning done first. And that's all unfortunate, but at the same time, I don't think I would have supported it back then either, because it's just not the neighborhood for it. Thank you.
Councillor Norton, are you prepared to give me yours?
Thank you, Your Worship, for the opportunity. I understood as a proponent for the project spoke that it was his third project is what I believe I heard. I think it was asked, was this your first project? And clearly stated through an interpreter that this was his third project. I guess for that was some confidence that he was familiar with the processes that we have as a city and through the growth and development process. For this being his third project, I didn't quite understand why for the first two things went well and he was familiar with it and familiar with project development, that this one somehow didn't apply. I guess the third piece, he's not an owner. He's not living in the dwelling per se. So I believe that there was an tenant, and I think the deputy spoke to that fairly accurately, that it was bought as an investment property to subdivide, and understand that. I also understand that there'll be an opportunity to go through perhaps go through the process. For me, process is important. I think as a council, we talk about policies and processes and land use, and I do believe how this one has come about is unfortunate, and we do promote before development starts that we go through the proper channels and permissions and consents. I also understand that this is a land use question as well, whether or not it's appropriate or not, and I guess that question's best asked through generating an approved process that the proponent for the project failed to either understand or do the proper due diligence that's required in subdividing a unit. So, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Lowe, what about you?
Yeah, I voted in opposite of PAC the last time when the presentation was here. But when the lady asked him how many other places he built, he said 3. And my mind flipped the other way, and that's why I'm voting against it tonight. If it wasn't 3, if that was his first one, maybe. But if you'd done 2 more, then you must have learned something from doing the other 2.
Councillor Hickey, were you against it? No. Oh, Councillor Ogden, you were? I understand the yeses. I heard, yeah, I get the yeses.
Too many cars for me.
Too many cars.
And I think part of that's our problem because we haven't been driving investment into our older neighborhoods by fixing them up. And taxes go up with urban sprawl, and we have been ignoring some of our older neighborhoods. And that's a problem that we've created ourselves. And St. John's one of the last cities to change that. St. John and Winnipeg. So there's too many cars in the area, but I hope this is a lesson for us to really go after our older neighborhoods. Thank you.
So Councillors Harris, Redwan, Hickey, and Killen, I know you were for it. I don't know if you need to speak again on this. If you can, you've got to do me a speed round, though. Councillor Harris?
I'll be real quick, Your Worship. It's a logical fallacy to argue for a slippery slope, right? We can't be sitting here saying, oh, well, they might build them all. We have a process to follow. This is a warning to anybody on this street to not do it. It's already built. They're already collecting rents. You're going to put 2 people, 3 people on the street to tear it down? I can't believe that's what I'm hearing.
Councillor Redwan?
I have a sorry. And the second part is we can't make land use decisions based on failure to get compliance when we want. That's just not how it works. So I'm a little bit baffled that that's where this conversation's degraded to, I guess.
Councillor Redwan?
Mayor, thank you. I appreciate it. So, I mean, obviously I was in favor. I think that, you know, when it comes to land use, I appreciate what Councillor Sullivan said. However, I think that the reason why we have this process is that we don't have to zone all the properties on that street if we don't want to. So that's within this body's control. The other thing that I couldn't help keep in mind is supply and demand, where we have minus 0.5 vacancy rate. In speaking, I don't think you'd mind me saying with Nick Shepherd, he thinks our homeless rate is up to 350. So, I mean, the need is there. Is it going to change, the neighborhood that much for this one house? No. If we did all of them, yeah, I mean, I think it would be definitely a bigger discussion. But anyway, that's kind of where I sit with that. I thought I would share with you. And the other thing that, I don't want to open a whole can of worms right now, but I think we need to have a discussion about our process here for our public hearings, because I'd really like to see PAC presenting. But anyway, we can talk about that
Yeah, that's another
later.
issue. All right, thank you, Councillor Hickey. I'll give you a minute.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Understand the position you've been put in here. I take the point specific to parking. I think it's reasonable. I would suggest that there's a commitment from the property owner to not use on-street parking consistently. I hope that's enforced. And if it's not, the city needs to take action to make sure that that's rectified. I would suggest too that if it's of the appetite of the other councillors, I thought Kathy had a fabulous idea in suggesting limiting it to what it's built as now, which is 3 units. I know I'd be supportive of that adjustment if there was willingness around the table.
Councillor Killen?
Thank you, Your Worship, and for hearing the yays. First of all, I've seen this before in my ward where there was an illegal apartment that came up and we had to fix that zoning for that particular location. So this isn't something that hasn't been done before. Also, this process is cumbersome, and I actually had to go this week and find the zoning process for some West Siders who are concerned about a property that's up and coming. And I had to write, and I've talked to staff about this, which is totally fine, we're going to work on it, but to just describe the zoning process from start to finish, I had to do that. There's nothing clear on our website. You can't go anywhere to find A to B. And if I was a newcomer, if I was going to go live where our applicant is from and try and navigate the zoning process, even if it was my 3rd time, I think, and we don't actually know the context of those other developments. They could have not required permitting. There could have been a number of things that weren't actually necessary to the process for those other properties. So we don't know that information. So to judge him on it is, I think, unnecessary and unfair. And again, if I was dealing with the language barrier and the gap of knowledge around some of this stuff, I probably would mess it up too and be in front of a council in a city in China, or forgive me if that's not where you're actually from. But I just don't think that this has been at all a fair process for the applicant, and I really it's unfair from what I'm seeing here.
All right, well, what I will say is that I do think it's been a fair process, because I think it is our process. If we thought our process was not fair, we would obviously have to do something with it. I think that no matter where you go, you have to abide by whatever the rules are going forward if you want to make changes in neighborhoods. I have my reservations on both sides of this coin. PAC was 100%, well, not 100%, but PAC does not recommend it go forward. Staff does recommend it go forward. So I think tonight what I actually am going to do is I will support staff in this to see how this works out for us at the end of the day. I do have concerns, which I've told everybody we can't talk about, which is the enforcement. But so now I don't want to talk about that. But so going forward, I guess we'll wait and see how this works out for us. I think it would be a good idea for staff to come back to us and let us know how this whole thing is proceeding, if it is satisfactory, where it's gone. I think there are probably some things that we can learn from this going forward, but that's where I sit tonight, I think, on that. So let's see, that's it. So first and second reading's been complete. All right, City Clerk, next item.
So that was the vote for first reading. So I'll
Oh,
just read
sorry.
out the title. This is a law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John, and we would require one more vote for second reading.
Okay, so I need a mover and a seconder for approve second reading by title. Councillor Harris and Councillor Radwan on the question. All in favor? Put my hand up. And opposed? Motion carried.
A law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John.
Thank you, City Clerk. Next item.
Next is item 9.4 on your agenda, another public hearing, and this is for a public hearing for stop-up and closure for portions of Retail Drive.
Okay, I'm sending this over to Commissioner Hugenholtz for the introduction.
Yes, good evening, Your Worship. Normally, these items for stop-up and closure of a street, you would hear our General Counsel's office introduce them. We're doing the introduction this evening just because the reason for this stop-up and close is related to transportation, namely to facilitate the alignment of Retail Drive and Ashburn Lake Road at Rosse Avenue. This public hearing is part of a prescribed process in accordance with the city's bylaws. This is a project that addresses a substandard design that has caused a lot of challenges for traffic in the area. This intersection alignment is identified in our transportation strategic plan as a priority project. Finally, there is alignment with Council's priorities, and I will now turn it over to Director O'Reilly to go over the other elements of public good involved in this decision in more detail.
Thanks, Commissioner Hugenholtz, and Your Worship and members of Council, good evening. As Commissioner Hugenholtz mentioned, our staff recommendation with this report is to stop up and close a portion of Retail Drive. It's actually the portion, pretty much the entire portion that's identified in yellow on this slide. But the purpose for which this closure is happening is really the focus of my presentation. The focus of closing that section of Retail Drive is to take two adjacent intersections and align them into a single intersection. And you can't do that without closing at least one of the two roads that currently align with them. During this presentation and during the public hearing, you're likely to hear different perspectives and individual perspectives in terms of how this project impacts those perspectives. With a project of this magnitude, there's going to be impacts, both positive and negative, to individual stakeholders. At the end of this public hearing, you'll be asked to support staff's recommendation to sub up and close this portion of Retail Drive. When you're about to make that decision, I ask you to think of two words, and those words are simply public good. When you have heard all the perspectives coming before you this evening, including what I'm going to provide in my presentation, the question is, do the benefits of the sub enclosure and the alignment project have a net benefit to the overall community and the public good? And if the answer to that question is yes, then again, we ask for Council's support for staff recommendation to stop up and close that portion of Retail Drive. Before I detail some of the specific public good generated by this project, I would like to review current conditions. The two adjacent intersections of Retail Drive and Ashburn Lake Road on Rosse Avenue are not close enough to effectively operate as two independent intersections, but they're also not close enough together to operate as a single intersection. Best practices suggest two signalized intersections on an arterial street should be at least 200 meters apart and certainly should not be less than 100 meters apart. These signalized intersections are far less than that at 60 meters apart. These existing conditions have caused several negative outcomes, including a failing or nearly failing level of service on 4 of the 6 approaches to that intersection experienced by motorists during the peak hours in the afternoon. The resulting impacts are excessive wait times and frustration by motorists, and impacts on other types of transportation as well besides that. City staff have spent countless hours from about the year 2007 to present to permit and try to permit this current operation of these intersections to operate efficiently and safely for the traveling public. But these efforts have only gone so far because, again, these substandard conditions which are present us up to today. The combination of excessive queue lengths and lack of upgrades at an adjacent rail crossing with 2 sets of rail tracks, that being identified within the red circle just beside these 2 intersections, has compromised the functioning of that rail crossing. The current conditions were never meant to be a long-term sustainable solution. I'll be speaking later in this presentation about future development opportunities that aligning these intersections will support, but it's also important to realize that with current development that's in place now around this intersection, it was always the plan to have these 2 intersections aligned into one intersection. So how will closing a portion of Retail Drive and allowing these two intersections to be allowed into a single one support that public good? Again, the project will eliminate that substandard design and the investment or essentially wasting of city resources over the years trying to overcome it. So we can turn our attention to other transportation issues around the city instead of keep going back to this location over and over again. The project will include installation of rail gates and other technologies at the adjacent rail crossing. They will both improve the safety of that rail crossing and remove a significant impediment to elimination of train whistles, which of course we identified and overcame with 2 West Side crossings just recently. That investment will be taken up as part of this overall project. The single 4-way intersection, instead of the 2 of them, would become fully accessible for active transportation modes for the safety of pedestrians of all abilities. There are a lot of fiscal benefits that come with this project, including value engineering efforts that have reduced the construction costs of the project, eliminating a full set of traffic signals so that we no longer have to maintain and operate year over year. And it unlocks over $5 million of investment at the provincial and federal level for project-specific funding for this particular project. Existing area businesses will see decreased delay times for customers trying to access their business. Approximately 400 housing units at East Point are planned that can only be supported by aligning these intersections. Even in the last couple of public hearings this evening, we heard of the importance of that. And with the number of additions of housing, this alignment will support, again, up to 400 housing units with aligning these intersections. So as council is aware, increasing that supply of housing stock is one of the strategies associated with overcoming the housing challenges faced by St. John and other communities, and is obviously needed in order to support our population growth targets within our 10-year strategic plan. You need more housing in order to accomplish both those goals. In addition to the current retail development that has been approved over the past 15 years or so, more development requires these intersections aligned to realize that important tax base growth that is also a priority of council. It is clear that aligning these intersections requiring a portion of Retail Drive to be closed aligns with 4 of council priorities. It aligns with your perform priority. It aligns with your belong priority. It aligns with your move priority, and it aligns with your growth priority. With the public good that this project will generate, again, as I mentioned, a project of this significance is bound to cause some negative impacts to particular stakeholders in different ways. Input from one stakeholder is advising some negative impacts, or is a Snoozy Sleep Center, and that's already submitted as part of your council package. The impacts are associated with truck access for deliveries by losing access from Retail Drive. Again, the section highlighted yellow within the slide. Transport trucks across St. John must access businesses, including on other parts of Rossi Avenue, in challenging ways. Is it expected within an urban setting to, again, have that managed and balanced design perspective that we all need within an urban community? This slide simply demonstrates a couple of options, among others, where trucks can continue to access Snoozy Sleep Center with access to only Rossi Avenue. The closure of Retail Drive will continue to support the city's responsibility of providing public access to a city right-of-way. That requirement will not change with this project or the realignment. Your Worship and Council, I've been involved in these intersections and the transportation issues around it for about the past 15 years. I started about 2008, and I can tell you from that period on to present day, every decision we made along the way, including over the last couple of years as we get closer to an actual solution, has all been about the overall public good. Ensuring that we're making the right decisions at the right time to ensure that we're achieving that overall public good. So Common Council, we believe the city staff closing a portion of Retail Drive and aligning the two intersections on Rossi Avenue will generate the overall public good once you have considered this presentation as well as any other perspectives you'll hear this morning. So at the end of the day, the recommendation from city staff will be to, again, provide that first and second readings for the stop-up and closure of Retail Drive. Thank you.
Thank you, Director O'Reilly. So I will now open the public hearing. And I will ask if there's anyone here who would like to speak against this application. I'll get you to give us your name just for formality.
Dan Gormley. I'm the owner of Snoozy's Sleep Center on 514 Ross Avenue. We've been in operation out there for 31 years at the end of November of this year. So I think we're over the hump as far as staying in business goes. We've paid over $2 million in wages in that time and over $600,000 in property tax. We have a core supplier that requires the delivery of mattresses multiple times a week, and they use 53-foot trailers with 19 feet extended for the tractors, so it's a total of 72 feet. When we bought that property, we bought that and opened up our business specifically for the needs of being able to get our trucks in there to receive our product. Access from Retail Drive, which is formerly Marlborough Avenue, is critical for the safe delivery of the product and for the trucks to get into our yard. So in effect, we're going from one entrance, or from 3 entrances down to 1 with the closure of Retail Drive. The trucks can't access the property by backing into it. I have with me my wife Heather, and I have Renee Downing, the owner of Marnie Transport from Quebec. So I'm not opposing the reconfiguration of Retail Drive, and I think that everybody that I've talked to knows that, but I need the city to recognize that the city's pursuing this objective as a means of enhancing safety and improving traffic flow, as said by Tim, okay? So as a business owner, I support the initiatives to bring improvements to our city and safety and respect the city's efforts in this regard, right? So I would hope that the city would respect my business interests in the course of pursuing these initiatives and would not take steps that would to create significant adverse consequences unnecessarily on my business. I've been there for 31 years. We went through COVID. We went through everything. I was still paying my salaries and my property tax and my suppliers. It's fully possible to both reconfigure that intersection of Rossi Avenue and Ashburn Lake Road and avoid a devastating impact on my business. My understanding is that Retail Drive is within the control of the City of St. John, and the City of St. John can make the appropriate arrangements to make sure that I maintain access to my property from Retail Drive in order to be the safe delivery of the product to my store. I've offered to purchase the part of Retail Drive that is beside my store. That can be a purchase price or that can be a down payment, okay? The city can decide how we go through this. I need that property, and if anybody has any questions for Mr. Downing, he'd be able to answer them for you. I don't expect the city to subsidize my business in any way. I'm prepared to approach this situation in a commercially reasonable fashion. I'm hoping the city will do the same thing. In order to survive, I need that property. And there's an adjacent property owner, and there's me. I need it. If the city will not sell me the lower portion of Retail Drive that's beside my business, then I request that the city grant me a right-of-way over Retail Drive required to access my property. I mean, all those money in taxes, I think I should be getting something in return for that. And I don't think that's an unreasonable request. Given that we're at a public hearing phase of this initiative, I would not expect that any final plans in this regard have been made, and it's still very much within the city's authority to look into this. I've been contacting the city in this regard since last summer, and as a business owner directly impacted by this proposed initiative, I would expect that I would at least be consulted to keep informed of the process. We were blanked out of the process right out of the gate. So, and we were writing the city letters to contact us. So now we're at this point. So simply put, I need to be able to access Snoozies from Retail Drive. So the trucks have to be able to go out one entrance, back into the other one, and unload. Without access to my property from Retail Drive, they can't do it. I've run this business successfully at this location for almost 31 years, contributing to our local economy, and I've never appeared before City Council before with any specific requests. So I'm a quiet taxpayer on Rossay Avenue. And it's a clean business. If the parties involved here are prepared to act reasonably, I'm confident that the city's objective can be achieved without destroying my business in the process. And I've alluded that to everybody that I can. Also would be required is that I maintain access to Retail Drive to allow entry to my property via the sale. And I'm willing to buy that property from the city of St. John, which still owns it. Purchase it. You guys just find out what I need to do here. I'm pleased to engage any further discussions necessary at the convenience of council or other city representatives that I've been dealing with. But in closing, I'm asking in closing that the closure of the Retail Drive not be improved until we get this land thing settled. And I hope that goes right to your hearts, because I love St. John. I'm not moving. I'm not going away. I have a successful business in St. John. Why wouldn't I love it? So, in conclusion, I understand that the city has to take into account a large number of public considerations and viewpoints when making its decisions. In this matter, I understand why council would want to consider reconfiguring the intersection. I'm only asking for a compromise that both accomplishes the city's goals without unnecessarily harming my business. I'm not looking for charity. I'll pay. I'm desperate. I want to stay in business. I have a huge customer base that depend on me. So, working together, I think, I'm pretty confident that there's a solution to this. We just have to get to there. So, I have to protect my business and still go with the improvements that the city wants. So if you have any questions or for myself or my transportation guy that I brought in town for this.
Counselor Hickey?
Thanks, Your Worship. Dan, it'd be great to hear from the transportation.
Okay, we'll slot him
If they
next
could
then.
speak next.
He's right here.
Yeah,
All right.
no, but just if they could speak next instead of prompted by questions.
Yep.
All right, I'll get you to give us your name.
Renee Downing.
Ray Downey?
Downing.
Downing, okay, thank you.
First, I'm French, but I could get away with English. The purchase of the street for Dan is a big thing for him because backing up a truck from Rodsey Avenue is dangerous, safety-wise, because it's doable, but with the traffic on Rodsey Avenue, backing up a truck, it's going to be hard because the people won't stop for truck. And safety-wise, it's not legal to back up a truck from a street. So you then need the space to maneuver a truck. And 72 feet long, the truck and trailer, to maneuver a truck, you need double the space to maneuver a truck. So if you have any more questions for me?
Counselor Hickey oh no, the deputy, sorry, has a question for you.
Renee, where does your truck dispatch from loaded with the product?
The company's from Montreal.
From Montreal.
And that's what we do. We haul mattresses all over the Maritimes. And the businesses, hotel, motel, bed and breakfast. So we haul mattresses everywhere.
So all of the mattresses on your truck are not going to one store?
Sometimes it's a full load for Dan. Sometimes they're partial loads. But to get a truck to his place, we need the space to maneuver safely.
So what I guess what I'm asking you is, do you need to use a 53-foot trailer, or can you use a 40-foot, or can you use a 5-ton truck?
Yeah,
Like,
but
it seems to me you're using the longest possible vehicle on the road and may not have to.
Well, the manufacturer used to be in Montreal. They just moved to Toronto. And they don't ship like straight trucks. They ship like tractor trailers. So that's the reason why for Dan to get a truck in there, he needs more space than just the parking lot.
Okay, so you're not shipping from Montreal now, you're shipping now from Toronto, correct?
Yeah.
So, okay, it's Toronto. So does he stop in Montreal at your warehouse on the way?
Yeah.
And do you take any product off the truck there?
Mm-hmm.
And what's left on the truck goes to Dan?
Not everything. It's just,
Can I interject on that? Because he's.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Dan. I'm just trying to determine if you're using a 53-foot tractor when you don't necessarily have to.
No,
That's all I'm saying.
They build the trailers in Montreal at their facility, so they get the product now. They used to get it out of the plant in Montreal. Now they get it from a plant in Toronto. And they'll have maybe 2 or 3 different shipments on there, and they'll meet those shipments with what's going to me and what's going, it could be stopping at me and unloading the whole trailer. Or it could be stopping at me and it could be going on to Halifax or Cape Breton. We're the largest independent dealer for that product line in New Brunswick.
Okay.
There's one place in Cape Breton that's larger than us, and he has 4 full-scale stores.
Okay. I just wanted to determine if you could have used a smaller truck, and you answered the question.
to be
Thank you.
feasible, you need a large truck, because to use a smaller truck would cost too much.
Okay, thank you. I see a question from Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, Renee, for being here. You mentioned you deliver to all sorts of places, stores, hotels. Do all of them have space for you to turn and back your truck into the loading dock?
Not all of them, but where we can't, they'll hire a smaller truck at their cost to do the job.
So what would happen there? You would meet the smaller truck, change over some of the load, and they would take it the rest of the way?
Yeah,
Okay,
but it's cost more.
okay, no, thank you for that.
Thank you. I've got a quick question for you. When you deliver to all of those other places, are you only coming to the Maritimes usually?
Yeah.
Are you,
But, PI, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Newfoundland.
yeah, and then you drop off in Quebec? No.
No.
No, okay. So when you come into any of those other cities, did you say you have a 72-foot trailer?
Total.
Total, 72 feet. Is a vehicle like that restricted in any of those other cities? Do you have a time restriction? Because I know a lot of the bigger cities will say.
Time-wise,
So
there's
you
no
don't
time.
have to be in the inner city between 6 and 8 a.m. or anything anywhere? Okay.
They tried to do that in Quebec, like Montreal. It didn't work.
Okay.
Because most of the customers, they want to work daytime, not nighttime.
No, I mean like 6 to 8 a.m. or 6 to 9 or whatever, like morning work. Now, what about, and you like to use Retail Drive because it's less busy than Rossay Avenue?
I use Retail Drive to be able to turn around, to be able to back up to the building.
Right, but
Like
you couldn't do that on Rossay Avenue?
No.
Because I mean, at the end of the day, wherever the cuts are on Rossay Avenue, that can all be changed.
Right.
The driveway cuts, right? It doesn't matter where,
But when he comes into our yard, they're not allowed to back up off of Rossay Avenue. Okay, it's designated as a provincial highway. So they have to come in nose first, and the only way that they have room so that they can escape from there is for me to have Retail Drive. They will drive out, back into the building, drive out the driveway, back, drive into the other driveway, and my driveway that's still gonna be there on Rossay Avenue will be his escape route to get back to the highway.
right, I get that. And the only reason I ask is because if retail was aligned with Ashburn Lake, we would be expecting that to get a lot busier over time. So you would continue to have an issue, I guess,
Right.
with backing up and in
Yep.
traffic and that.
And just to clarify, the Rothsay Avenue, it would be doable to back in from Rothsay Avenue to his property, but safety-wise, you're not allowed to do that, because if you back up into a pedestrian, who's at fault?
If you back up into what?
Over a pedestrian.
Oh, yeah, well, if you back up off a Retail Drive over a pedestrian, you're still in trouble.
Yeah, but see, they're not leaving my property. The nose of the truck is going
Right.
out into Retail Drive and backing up. So it would be more like a pedestrian walking into the side of this truck.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you. I see no more questions, so you two gentlemen can have a seat. Oh, wait, now I do have another question. The deputy's back on?
Just a quick question. So, Renee, are you saying then, if this goes through, that there's no way that you can get your product to his store? You'll have to stop delivery to him?
You'll have to stop Rothsay, the traffic on Rothsay Avenue, to be able to back in.
So even if there was no curbs there whatsoever, you couldn't drive your truck into his yard?
No, because
No.
the problem is, try to stop the traffic, you want to back up a truck in?
No, not if backing in. I mean, if you drove into his yard
Oh,
and
there's
then
not enough room to turn around.
with the
Because
big
the
truck.
space from his door to the curb, it's only 50 full.
53 feet.
Yeah, between 53, 55 feet.
Okay, and you use smaller trucks other places to
No.
overcome these
No,
problems?
we don't have any
No,
smaller
no.
trucks.
Well, you just said that if some
Well-
of these stops, you use a smaller truck to transfer the
Yeah,
load.
but some customers, they'll come and get their own trucks.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Counselor Norton, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Dan and his, I guess, his partner in business. In terms of, I'm just trying to get at, this is a tough one. Operationally, is there a way to coordinate deliveries and drop-offs operationally? You know that you're in the logistics business, I'm not, so hats off to people that are running buses and shipping containers and transport trucks. So to do it in such a way that Ross A. Avenue traffic-wise becomes, it's kind of, those things aren't up to you, I suppose. The customer needs the mattresses, you're on route.
I've been in business with Dan, like delivering his stuff since 2002.
Certainly, yeah.
And all day, Route 8, it's heavy traffic.
Right.
It doesn't matter when. It's rush hour is even worse, but there's traffic all day. And try to back in a truck from Route 8, you'll have a problem. You'll either somebody's gonna drive into you, or you're gonna back up into a car or a pedestrian.
And Dan, we've talked, a little bit this, during this presentation, that in some instances they have staff that would help coordinate or pause traffic for a brief period of time to allow for the merchandise to get dropped off. Can you help us better appreciate what that does in terms of staffing, or the pain point that would do, or whether that's even feasible on your end to help, I guess, air traffic control maybe it's both of you.
He doesn't understand what you're saying.
Well, I guess at the end of the day, I think I heard it that in some instances, staff would pause traffic to allow the operator of the vehicle to back in. Can you?
I can clarify that for you.
Please do, yeah, no, please. I think it's.
Well, we're a small, as you know, we're a small business,
Certainly.
okay? So I directly usually have 2 other people in my business, so that makes 3. The other 2 guys go to deliver a mattress to somebody's house. So now we're down to 1. His trucks don't come on a specific time.
Right.
It's like Tuesday morning. So I can't afford to pay people to wait around for a truck. They have to go do other stuff. When the truck comes, and a lot of people know how busy we are, I'm in the store serving 1 or 2 customers at once because I'm the only one there. And somebody pulls up in the truck and I've got to go out and stop traffic on Ross A. Avenue. Number one, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going out there and going like this. It's not going to work. There's still cars going to be whizzing by me. I've actually asked people that work for the city, if you want to do it, show me how you do it. Go out there and stop traffic on Ross A. Avenue. It's not safe. And this is all about getting safe, clean delivery of my product. So every time these mattresses are handled or they're interlined with somebody, they get dragged,
It's extra wear and tear on the product.
They get ruined.
Yeah.
When he brings his truck to my place, we've had 0 damage.
It's fresh produce.
Huh?
It's fresh produce.
Yeah, exactly.
I get it.
So I depend on him to get my product in nice and clean so I can deliver it to somebody's house that's waiting for it.
100%.
If it comes in dirty, I have to send it back. It comes back 3 weeks later. I've already lost the sale. They've gone somewhere else. So I paid for a product that I sold that I didn't get any money for because I refunded the customer. That's what this business is going to end up doing with the closure of Retail Drive. I want to buy that road. I will buy it from the city. I brought a $25,000 bank draft with me to start negotiating to buy that road. It makes no difference to any other party to have that road, except for me. It's been there for 30 years, having him using parts of that road to get into my building.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay?
All right, I think that's it for questions. Thank you both.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate everybody listening to this.
All right, I'm going to ask again if there's anyone here
Okay?
who would like to speak against this application to close a portion of Retail Drive. I'm going to ask once more for the third time. Is there anyone else in the audience or online who would like to speak against the application to close up a portion of Retail Drive? All right, I'm going to move on to, is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the application? Come forward and give us your name for the record, please.
Can I get some help with the presentation? There's a... This one's still open, so... Just put on the slide. Okay, thank you very much. My name is John Wheatley. I'm here tonight representing East Point Shopping. And really, I'm representing not just East Point Shopping, but the 30 or so businesses that are operating up at East Point. And this is 30 businesses that are employing over 600 people and paying a combined $2.5 million a year in property tax. And these people, like all businesses, rely on good access for successful operation of their business. So obviously, the closure of, or the partial closure, I should say, Retail Drive is a very important step in the ultimate realignment of Retail Drive and Ashburn Lake Road and Ross Avenue, and that is why I'm here tonight speaking in favor of this. In a couple minutes, I'm going to ask Mark Gunner, who's with me. He's with EXP Engineering Services. He'll speak to a couple of the proposals that we would like to show you. So, I'll just get this. That work? Okay. Three things I'd like to cover off tonight, and I'll do it as quickly as I can. Just want to talk about the existing performance of the intersection, which you've already heard quite a bit about. A little bit about the economic growth, the impact that this intersection realignment will have on our operation and others. And last, a request that we got from city staff to try and help resolve some of the concerns that had been expressed and you've just heard about. So just as a reminder of one of the basic parts of this, I guess a very fundamental issue here is safety. This is a camera from our security system at our Ashburn Road office, which is directly facing this intersection. And this is just a little reminder of what we're here about. And at the end of the day, this has been going on for quite some time. And it's certainly not acceptable. Unfortunately, in this accident, nobody was injured. And just to sort of recap, get that again, I guess, there we go. And just to recap some of the stats that we've seen over, I guess, a long history of this being a very difficult intersection, that stats we got from your police department from the period 2013 to 2016, this intersection had 54 accidents. And during that same period of time, the famous Sims Corner had 4 accidents. It just shows the magnitude of the problem that we're dealing with constantly. And as was referred to earlier, pedestrian use of this intersection is dangerous at best, even though there is a walk light there. So just to step on to the intersection performance side, I'm not going to repeat all the things that we heard earlier from staff. But there was the most recent report that I'm aware of on the
intersection is one that was done in January of 2019 when we applied for rezoning to get the residential component up at East Point. And the comments are pretty straightforward. We know there are operational deficiencies there. These are all quotes in the report. The current level of service is low, which is the second lowest rating on a scale of A to F. Even if we don't proceed with the residential development and more expansion at East Point, this intersection by 2028 will drop to a rating of poor. And the report went on to say that it is recommended to realign the intersection even without the proposed development. Another interesting point is if you look at the peak flow of traffic on that intersection, some 2,600 vehicles an hour at peak, only 900 of those vehicles, or about a third, are using the road up to East Point. Only a third are going or coming on Retail Drive. So this is not just a East Point issue, it's a Rothsay Avenue issue. So it's very important to us, and maybe the most important restriction right now, when we did get our rezoning in 2019 for the residential component, the zoning approval carried a restriction that we can build no more than 200 residential units at the site because of the shortcomings of this intersection. So what does this do for the impact on economic growth? As I said earlier, we are the home to 30-some businesses up there. Our plans to build out the rest of the site, which has still got lots of room for expansion, is to add another 10 or 12 commercial retail businesses and to build a residential complex of 400 units. And some people are going to say, you know, why 400 units? Well, the amenities and like the common space, the parking, the architectural features, all those take an economy of scale that we can't do with 200 units. We have to build over time enough units to justify the common area expenses. So what's going to happen when we do get East Point built out? It's going to increase the property tax revenue by an additional $2.5 million on top of the $2.5 that's being paid now. And obviously it's going to create new employment. So this is certainly a very serious and important question for the continued growth of the East Point development. Now, the third thing I wanted to cover is that we got a call from city staff, I'd say about a month ago, and they asked if there was some way that we could help with the concerns that were being expressed about access to the neighboring property. And we thought about it, and obviously we were interested in helping out because it's important to us, it's important to the community. And we thought the best way we could help out was to share some of the expertise that we have had or have gained over the years, primarily up at East Point. And I just want to give you an example of the kind of challenges that we face and why we thought we could share that experience with the owner of the Snoozy store. If you look at this little diagram from East Point, people are probably familiar with the Sobeys and liquor store up at East Point. It's up above where you turn, you go past Costco and Home Depot and drive into East Point. We had a challenge with how to get these same 53-foot trailers, 72-foot trucks into that Sobeys and A&BL, the liquor store loading docks. So we came up with working with our architects to, as you can see the red, the trucks come up the road, then they make a turn in that turning area just as you go across that last street, and they back into either the loading docks there. So it was a way that they came up to solve a truck access problem. So, as I say, we decided we would do what we could to help out. We've met with city staff. We've had a number of meetings with Mr. Gormley, as you know, the owner of the Snoozy store. We talked obviously to our own site architect. We then consulted with EXP Engineering, who were more of an independent advisor on these kinds of issues. And we've come up with EXP's help. We've developed 3 options that would address the concerns we feel are being expressed tonight. And I'd just like to ask Mark Gunter, who's from EXP, to explain those to you. And I'll just, Mark, if I can get this to move. There we go.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I guess I'm with EXP. I'm a traffic engineer, and I guess here to speak very specifically tonight on, as John mentioned, he engaged us to look at options to access Snoozy site from Rosse Avenue. I guess without getting into too much of the technical details here, so basically we do that using a software called Autodesk AutoTurn. It's an industry standard software for doing this type of analysis. You've actually seen it on a few of the drawings here already this evening. I just want to clarify, it's a little bit awkward here. I'm not a truck driver, but we have used this software, being industry standard software for hundreds of sites to do this very type of analysis. And what I can say is if the maneuver shows to be feasible in the model, it tends to be conservative by nature. I mean, obviously driver skill is a major variable, but we have done this, and so if it's feasible here, it should be feasible in the site. The design vehicle that we've used for all these movements, there's been lots of discussion about the design vehicles. We have modeled a tractor trailer with the 53-foot trailer, which is the same dimension that we've had discussions about earlier this evening. Oh, okay. And so there's three options, I guess, that we've looked at, and all of these options are coming in directly from Rosse Avenue. I know the other source of concern here this evening was the safety associated with backing up in Rosse Avenue. All three of these options involve the driver driving in to the site from Rosse Avenue and driving out onto Rosse Avenue, so no backing up in the right-of-way required. So three options, and again, these are just, not to say there couldn't be more. So the first option that you see on the screen is basically a driver driving south, driving in, and driving to the left of the building and backing around on site in front of the building to where the existing loading bay door is. The dark area there, so I mean, there's potentially some minor impacts to some signage on the front that you see on the street, but this is able to be done without impacting any of the existing parking on site. Yep, got it. So the second option is basically the reverse, and it's driving in and driving into the right of the building and backing around front to the left-hand side of the building. The one benefit of this, I think, from a truck driver's perspective, is it allows it to do the movement looking out their driver's side window rather than their opposite side mirror. Of course, in its current configuration, this maybe doesn't make a lot of sense given the location of the loading bay door, but perhaps as an alternative, the relocation of that loading bay door to the other side of the building might facilitate this movement. And the third and final option is basically coming in, going to the left of the building and driving completely around the building. Again, you can see if you've got really good eyesight that is a fairly tight movement. And there are some, obviously some trailers that are parked there on the aerial image, and there's a shed that would potentially have to be relocated, and potentially some trees along the back of the lot that would have to be trimmed to accommodate that. So I guess, look, in summary, based on the analysis that we've done, which is based on industry standard, we feel there are feasible options with maybe some minor accommodations for trucks to access the site.
Perfect, thank you. All right, does anyone have any questions for the last two presenters? I have a question from Councillor Harris. Oh, John will come back up then.
Sorry, I thought you had questions for Mr. Gunter, but okay. So those are the three options that they came up with. None require backing in off Rosse Avenue. All are drive in and drive out options. So we've obviously reviewed these ideas with the owners of Snoozies, and we also said to the owner, we understand, as you've been told tonight, that if the entrances to the store have to be moved, they can be adjusted as required. We've also said that if there's any question that there is not enough room for these movements to occur, despite the engineers saying that they're conservative, we're saying that we would do a couple of things as I guess the eventual landowner of these properties. One is that until such time as we develop that new piece of land that's being created with the closure of Retail Drive, we would allow access across that or an easement to use that to maneuver the trucks as they do today. But clearly only until we're going to develop that property into a long-term use. And secondly, you remember the last option of the that shows the driving around of the store. Oops. If for some reason there was a requirement for some additional land on the Home Park property, which is not owned by East Point, but it's a related company that we've convinced them to agree that if the Snoozies folks needed a little bit of an easement to make that turn more practical, that we would certainly discuss an easement. We'd have to be careful not to interfere with those two homes that are there. There are people living there, but we can provide some relief if there would have to be a little bit of more space behind that building to allow those trucks to turn. So I guess in conclusion, it's no surprise to any of you that I'm here tonight speaking about the importance of this intersection realignment. We had worked diligently with staff and the owners of Snoozies. Unfortunately, we weren't able to come to a satisfactory conclusion, as you can tell by the presentation tonight. But at the end of the day, we all know this is a very important project. It's going to get rid of this non-standard intersection. It's going to remove this development restriction on East Point. It's going to improve the traffic flow on Rothsay Avenue for all businesses. And it's certainly going to help drive growth not only at East Point, but all parts of East. So we definitely are in support of the staff recommendation that this closure go ahead. So thank you very much for your time.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Wheatley? Councillor Harris, over to you.
Yeah, so I understand that you're limited to a 200-unit construction limitation right now with the intersection as it is. If those limitations were removed, because I understand they're imposed by the city, even though there is advice from your traffic engineer to the same, if those limitations were removed, would you build the units up there?
I missed the last part of that.
So if the limitations to keep and maintain 200 units based on the current intersection were removed, would you build the 400 up there?
Our plan is definitely to include a residential component. We have a plan that includes 4 buildings that would total just about 400 units. And we are, as you know, right now, this is not the best market for building with the problems we've had with COVID and price escalation. But we are definitely committed to moving ahead and building a residential component. And over time, we would end up with those 400 units. Our plan, we are not people that build on speculation. We wait until we have a firm financial footing to do something. We would build a building. The buildings each are in the order of 80 to 85 to maybe 90 units each. And we would build a unit, get it leased out, start a second building, get it leased out. So we're talking, building these over a period of time. It might be, it's a 2-year construction period for apartments, generally speaking. So we're probably looking at an 8 to 10 year time horizon to get all of those.
No, I understand that, but will you do it if the intersection isn't changed?
Pardon me?
Will you build it if the intersection stays the same way? And
Well,
I know you're limited by the 200, but if those limits are removed, are you going to build the 400 without an intersectional change?
I guess that's a very hypothetical question. There are 2 problems with the 2 immediate problems, I guess, with the intersection. One is we do have the restriction imposed by the city. And secondly, it does impede the access to East Point for current stores. When we built originally the Costco store was built, they felt that the intersection was going to be realigned 15 years ago. When the Indigo store was built, they thought it would be realigned. When the Sobeys store was built, I remember coming to City Hall with the Sobeys folks and being told that, yes, that's going to get realigned, don't worry. So it's a practical today problem for access to the site. It's a bigger practical long-term problem for the access to the site, and it's a real problem with the restriction we have in place. So would we build if the intersection was realigned? It would be a tougher decision. That's all I can say is that it would make it harder for us to decide how to build out that site, definitely. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any more questions, so I will call for the second time if there's anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the application for the stop-up and closure of Retail Drive. And I'll ask for the third time if there's anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the application. So I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to ask my team if anyone has any questions for staff, and I see a green light on. Councillor Harris, over to you, for Director O'Reilly, I guess.
Thanks. I only got a couple minutes here, Tim, as you know, so I just want to rapid fire some questions. Do you know how many parking spaces are up there on East Point collectively?
I don't know how many parking spaces up there. No.
There's over 1,000 from what I can figure in my own estimation. So I have a really hard time understanding why we're imposing a 200 maximum on residential construction out there when we have no way to determine how many cars are going to go up there to go to these stores. So I'm just trying to understand, I get the intersection's a problem. I'm also looking at major problems around traffic calming in our city, lots of collisions on the lower west side. I get that there's collisions here, there's collisions in other places too. Deer collisions on Heather Way and over on University Ave. So the idea that we have limited construction to 200 because it's going to increase traffic doesn't make sense in my brain when I know there's 1,000 parking spaces up there that could be filled at any point in time, should people choose to all go shopping at the same time.
Director O'Reilly, over to you.
I'll give you the quick technical and the quick
Appreciate
logical
that.
answer. The quick technical question is, we studied this. We've studied it. We've had the consultants look at it, and how the intersection is going to act and behave will not work, even as existing conditions, and certainly not without the additional residential development. From a realistic perspective, if you go up there on occasion to visit Costco, Sobeys, or whatever, you might go up there on occasion, maybe once a week, twice a week, during rush hour. Imagine living up there. Every single day at rush hour, you're coming home from work, dealing with that low level of service and trying to go home every day. It wouldn't be acceptable as a resident. So we looked at that as well. It's not only the people trying to make trips to Costco or Sobeys, but people going there every single day home to work. It's not going to be a functioning intersection.
Thanks.
Thank you, Director. I don't see any more questions here for you, so I guess I will take a motion from the floor. I'll require two: approval of first reading by title and approval of second reading by title. So is there a mover, Councillor Ogden, and a seconder, Councillor, what?
I was just moving the motion.
He's only moving the motion.
Your worship.
Okay, and the deputy. No, I can't vote on it. Yes, until all my team gets back. Correct? But I can take a motion. Can I not? Okay, I have a mover and a seconder. But I have to wait for the deputy to get back before I can vote. So we have 8 people voting.
While we wait, I was going to offer comments on the motion.
No, let's wait. Just so that everybody who's voting gets to hear, your logic. Well, I said it because I'm in public, Hickey. Just kidding. Okay, who's left? Oh, the deputy? He's not in the washroom? Did you check both of them? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Councillor Hickey, over to you.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I just wanted to offer a couple of comments on this one. I think the realignment is really important for the growth in the neighborhood. We've seen a lot of, anecdotally, we've seen a lot of challenges from both the mobile home park there and from pedestrian access in the area. I think this will work to rectify a lot of that. I think the realignment is really important for that. Second, I think it's really important in our agenda of growth readiness to make sure that we are making these investments and making these infrastructure investments as we see future growth preparing for that space. From an active transportation and from a Move SJ perspective, I think it's going to be important as we see more safety for active transportation users, more safety for pedestrians in that area. Certainly with the video that was shown by Mr. Wheely, I would contend that imagine that situation if you weren't in the car trying to cross the street there. It's incredibly challenging. We've heard it from residents in the area. And we see the opportunity ahead of us, especially with the opportunity put on the table to use it or lose it funding from both the federal and provincial governments here in this case. And I think that's really important to consider. I think it's also really important that we do not unduly impact small business in doing so. We've got a long runway here in terms of construction and work that will go forward. I would contend to Mr. Wheatley that the best way you can support this situation is not only by traffic modeling. I think there are better ways that we can work to resolution on this one, and I hope that that is undertaken and that is seriously considered, because the issues brought forward by Mr. Gormley are not ones that should go unconsidered. Overall, I'm supportive of the project. I think it's really positive, and I do hope we pass it today. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ogden, over to you.
There's a couple things. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Gormley and Mr. Northrup for being local entrepreneurs. And I want to speak to that point about what we're supporting here as local entrepreneurs. Right now we have a big dilemma on our face about Irving Oil, and people are making all kinds of comments about we could lose 20,000 people if 4,000 people. And I heard a comment the other day about a person said to me, well, just another owner will come in. And they don't realize the power of local ownership. Both these, Mr. Gormley and Mr. North, have put time back into the community, volunteering, donations, their management level. When if we happen to not stand up for instance, Irving Oil, which is an economic decision, we will lose a huge management, and it will be just a tiny workforce, and it could be the biggest hurt that St. John's experienced. And we have hurt before when we lost the dry dock. And we weren't vocal about losing the dry dock because the jobs didn't disappear; they were moved politically, and we lost 8 other federal government departments because we were quiet. And so in this case, I do want to be vocal. I know the province is watching us. There's a $6 million investment here. Mr. Wheatley has told us that we could double the tax amount from $2.5 to $5 million. And we could have approximately 400 housing units. But I think the message that we want to send is that we're open for business, but we're willing to fight for local business. And that's something that I think St. John has been set back by political decisions because we didn't speak out. So I want to make sure that we speak out very loud here. There is a window of 18 months. I hope that Mr. Gormley and Mr. Northrup can work out something to the satisfaction of both. Mr. Gormley has been a very good citizen, and we need more people like him. But we also need this growth, and this is economic structuring. And on the economic structure of St. John has suffered for 25 years. And this will send a good message, and hopefully we can solve other problems like the largest dry dock in the country sitting there empty, like not losing Irving Oil. So I think this is a structure. I'm sitting here wondering, how did it ever get built in the first place? But I think that if Mr. Gormley and Mr. Northup can come to some conclusion, that we should go ahead, because I know there is a time barrier. So that's my point today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harris?
Your Worship, this one's hard. I just feel like, the intersection absolutely needs to be realigned, and I get that. But there is a real case to be made here, and I want to thank Mr. Gormley as well for coming, because I feel that pinch, I feel that pain as he's talking about it. But the intersection needs to be done at some point in time. But I think the one thing I want to point out, we're having a discussion in this province on the rights of municipalities to be able to make their own decisions. And this is another example of a situation where there's pressure from the province and limitations put on by the province, and a municipality has to jump through and do acrobats to fit into, and it comes at the cost. It's always an add with subtracting. And it comes at a major cost to our businesses and our community. And I think how we got here in the first place with Ashburn Lake coming to where it did was an oversight. How we are here with the limitations on this funding pocket to do the things we need to do with it is an oversight. And it's just a good example of why municipalities need more autonomy to be able to run what's in their backyard, especially cities. So this is a lot of context to this, is a lot of nuance to this decision. It's very difficult for me because in some ways there's a lot of corporate interests here that I don't really have a lot of time for, especially when there's a lot of St. Johners and other parts of the city that are having a very difficult time navigating the streets. And we're held up on projects like Main Street. But there's still people that get hit on that intersection every day, and there's still all kinds of limitations, especially to people and pedestrians. So it's just difficult, that's all I'm going to say, and it's probably the hardest vote I'll have to make tonight. Thanks.
Deputy?
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I'm obviously convinced that this has to go through. I mean, we've got one of the most dangerous intersections in the city there with a lot of accidents happening. We want to increase the business, going up to Retail Drive, and so you're going to have a more smoother, flow of traffic. I do have empathy for, Snoozies. I think that it's a long-term business, and I think that, he does great work, and you're, a great businessman. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to pivot the way we do our business, I guess, if there's opportunities to use, a different mode of delivery, well, then I guess we have to start looking at that. I would like to see, though, the 18 months or so that, we have as a window to find a long-term solution for that issue. But having said that, progress has got to move forward, so I think that this is something that I'd be supporting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just quickly, I guess the two parts of the conversation. One is, do we close that portion of Retail Drive? And everybody kind of agreed. I mean, even the folks from Snoozy said, yeah, it would be good. Now, they worried about what will happen when. So I think that's, I guess for me, that's two conversations we need to continue to support and see what we can do to help a business who's been in St. John for going on 31 years. I might have bought my first waterbed from them a long time ago. But and I do appreciate that there's some recognition from the neighbors of problem solving. So we do need to stay on top of that. And there was conversations on the public record that some offer from the neighbors. I'm going to look quickly over at Mr. O'Reilly. Move St. John has 5 traffic circle roundabouts that haven't even hit our long-term capital plan yet. This is another intersection. Oh gosh, and I get the conversation around which one for us is a priority. Well, for me, with my financial hat on, if somebody wants to come bring us $5 million to help do this one, let's do this one and get it done so we can move on to the next one. We've got to modernize our transportation system. I agree with Councillor Ogden. I don't know how it got there, but it is. It needs to be fixed. We have an opportunity to fix it. We have an opportunity to fix it with support, financial support from some partners. So let's get it done so we can talk to our partners about financial assistance, get the other 5 done. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Ogden, back to you.
Shortly, Mayor, local decisions, we have 2 local entrepreneurs here, very successful. Local decision-making, and I refer to what Mr. Harris was talking about, the province, no matter what it is, the local decision-making is the best decision-making, and I thank these people for coming here tonight.
Thank you, Councillor. I will thank you, both the teams, for coming tonight. I think we all agree that growth readiness, moving the city forward is imperative. The other side of that coin is how can we work together to make sure that people are impacted positively on both sides of that. So I think that's really what we want to see at the end of the day. And growth readiness for St. John, because we're an old city. This street represents some miscalculation at the years ago, but it's not unusual for this council to be sort of going back to look at how can we rectify some of those things. So this will be a good move for us. And with the 5.2 million coming from the province and the feds combined, I think that's very helpful as well. So I will, the motion on the floor, just for for everyone, is to approve first reading by title. So that motion is on the floor. I have a mover and a seconder. So I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? One opposed. Councillor Lowe? Motion carries. Over to you, City Clerk.
This bylaw is entitled a bylaw respecting the closing of roads, streets, or highways in the city of St. John.
Okay, I need a motion to approve second reading by title. Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Ogden on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Lowe opposed. Motion carries.
A bylaw respecting the closing of roads, streets, or highways in the city of St. John.
Thank you all for coming this evening. Appreciate it. Appreciate your patience with us. We had a couple of tricky ones there, made it a little bit longer. Thank you. Oh, okay. Okay, should we take a little recess? Yeah. Should I take a recess? Can I get a motion for a quick recess? What? Oh, wait, now Councillor Lowe wants to speak. Go ahead. Councillor Lowe. Wait a minute.
Thank you. I voted no, and I want to tell you the reason I voted no. Like, I do think it's in for the public good. There's no doubt about that. But we got at least 2 to 3 years to rectify the problem for this gentleman here. And I personally I dealt with John sneaking out the door, and I dealt with these people, right? And I think in the 2 or 3 years, we should be able to make this gentleman happy with the transportation, right? There is a way that everybody can be happy, but there's got to be movement on both sides. And that's why I voted no.
Thank you, Councillor. Third reading will be 22 to 24 months out, it looks like. Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion for a quick recess? Councillor Hickey and the deputy? Thank you. Can we do like 5 minutes? Okay, can I call the meeting back to order, please? Where's my gavel? City Clerk, over to you for the next item.
Thank you, Your Worship. So next item is the consent agenda.
Consent agenda, over to you, Deputy.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move 5.1 through to 5.8, please.
Take a seconder on that, Councillor Killen, on the question. Councillor, all in favor? Oh, so hang on, Councillor, I get a bunch of questions here now. Councillor Lowe.
Jump me out. I'm trying to find it. Go somewhere else and come back.
Councillor Hickey.
Thanks, Your Worship. 5.4, I just have a question for staff on. Is that going to increase our capacity to meet our pole collection demand, the new truck?
Kevin Lockery's on, he's virtually, is he? Yep, okay. We're just going to wait for Kevin to click on there. Here he comes.
Hello?
Hello, Kevin.
Oh, through you, your worship, to the councillor. This is a like-for-like replacement of our current fleet asset. So this isn't going to increase any current capacity. It's just to mitigate the life cycle of the current asset we have.
Okay, thank you. I would suggest that any opportunity we see to increase that capacity be met. We have not been meeting our targets on pole collection. In particular I would suggest in the south end and lower west side, we have not been meeting our collection standard, which my understanding is daily. So I would hope we would look for an opportunity for that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Commissioner, did you want to chime in on that as well?
Just real briefly, even though this doesn't increase our capacity, having a new machine is certainly going to increase reliability. And that is one of the reasons why at times we're not able to complete the collection or emptying of those pole baskets is because the equipment is down, it's in the shop. So this will help in that regard.
So it's your understanding then, Commissioner, that we will be able to meet the expectation of consistent pickup of those?
That's absolutely what we need to do, even if it means reallocating our resources. We at least need to have that consistent pickup. Yes.
Great. It's so
Thank you.
important that we keep those. Thank you.
Councillor Lowe?
5.6.
5.6.
The company from Nova Scotia that's flushing the hydrants, is the membership or is the members of Local 18 still going around and learning how the operation works?
Okay, I'm going to pass this one over to Ian Fogan. Are you?
Through your worship to the councillor, yes, we're still working on that as to exactly how that will work. We just got their schedule here today and we're ongoing discussions with Local 18 members to transfer that learning from the contractor to them.
Good, thank you.
Councillor Sullivan?
Just quickly on 5.8, I'm just happy to see some work going in Candlewood Lane. It's interesting, that little piece of land has so much density. We receive a very sizable piece of property tax. If you went and looked at some other places in Milledgeville, and you would be quite surprised at what we receive from Candlewood Lane versus some other areas that are much less dense. So just happy to see some work going in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so I have a mover and a seconder. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is a proclamation, item 7.1. It's for World Kidney Cancer Day.
World Kidney Cancer Day. The International Kidney Cancer Coalition has declared Thursday, June 15th, 2023, to be World Kidney Cancer Day. And whereas the theme this year is living with kidney cancer, and whereas kidney cancer, or Cancer du Rein Canada, is a national bilingual community of patients, caregivers, and health professionals who work to provide every Canadian touched by kidney cancer with support, education, and advocacy for their care pathways and treatment options. And whereas we are the only Canadian bilingual national patient and caregiver organization solely focused on kidney cancer, now therefore I, Mayor Donna Node Reardon of St. John, do hereby declare Thursday, June 15th, 2023 as World Kidney Cancer Day in the city of St. John. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is members' comments.
Okay, it's 9 o'clock at night, folks. Okay. All right, excellent. I want to say one fast thing. The final Systemic concert is for NBYO is this Thursday, June 16th, St. John High. Okay, next item, City Clerk.
Next is item 12.1. It's an update from the CAO on select catalytic projects.
Over to you, CAO.
Good evening. For the catalytic projects update, I'll provide a brief update on each of the 4 infrastructure projects and touch on a couple of the advocacy projects. So, as the community knows, in council, the working committees as it relates to the Innovative Central Peninsula Learning Commons. Work is still ongoing with them for the new school in the Central Peninsula and in the North End. With respect to Fundy Key, the Market Slip area, work continues on the Fundy Key site. The developer continues with design work preparing for the new building construction. The work on Market Slip area construction continues to progress well, and the project remains on schedule for completion of construction by December 31st. And the patios have been opened ahead of schedule, and work on the public space moving forward is primarily above ground work. Therefore, you'll notice that it will start to progress pretty quickly now with the installation of patio pavers from the patio area towards the stage. So that work's ongoing. And for the new comprehensive rec facility, work is ongoing with our consultants, and we continue to seek funding opportunities to enable that project. As it relates to the investment in industrial parks, the value chain analysis is complete, and we're building on the Deloitte work. The city staff have started working on 5 unique work streams identified within the Deloitte study, and the team is working on a range of marketing and promotional assets. And I'm pleased to say that the new industrial parks website has been launched in the month of May, and so that's up and available. And the team is also working with key partners on collaborating around infrastructure opportunities as we work towards the advancement of the creation of the 10-year strategic plan. That's part of our 2023 work plan. And on the advocacy projects, affordable housing, the team's been very active in advancing the initiatives of the Affordable Housing Action Plan to accelerate the supply of housing in St. John. We're anxiously awaiting word on the federal CMHC Rapid Housing Funding Initiative grant program applications submitted approximately 3 months ago. The city led the coordinated approach with nonprofit housing organizations in St. John, and St. John has benefited in that St. John has been beneficial to date, and we're now in need of a funding announcement so that we can move forward on those 123 affordable housing units. And I'm pleased to say that we've also filled the role of manager housing, and the person who's filled that position is Andy Reed from the city. And and the team has remained focused on the Housing Accelerator Fund and the opportunity it presents for St. John to remove barriers to accelerating housing and to possibly provide significant financial support as well to the city in removing those barriers. So work will continue as we anxiously await the opening of the site for the submission of our application to the Housing Accelerator Fund. And lastly, we look forward to seeing the province release their homelessness strategy later this month. And with that, Your Worship, that concludes my update.
Thank you so much. I will take a motion to receive for information. Councillor Hickey and the deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next is item 12.2 on the agenda. It's 10 Market Square reimagination.
This is going over to Director Fogan.
Thank you, Your Worship, to Council. It's not very often an opportunity to comes up to talk about an iconic piece of infrastructure located in the heart of Uptown that can leave a lasting impression on a generation of residents and visitors. But we have one now in front of us. Given such an opportunity, we thought it best to invite some of our local best and brightest to help us through this process, namely Monica Adair and Stephen Kopp. Monica will lead us through the presentation, but as an introduction, Monica is a co-founder of Acre Architects here in St. John. Acre Architects have been involved in award-winning projects that emphasize craftsmanship, functionality, local tradition, and artistic expression. Monica is the past recipient of the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada Young's Architect Award, and Acre was selected in 2016 by Wallpaper Magazine as one of the 20 architecture firms to watch. I'll also mention that Barb Crawford is here. She's one of our operations managers helping to manage the project, and she's here to answer any questions on the project. But for the presentation, I'll turn that over to Monica and Stephen.
Thank you. Welcome. I'm always interested to hear what you two have to say.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Your Worship, Council, staff. Thank you very much, and thank you for letting us have insight into your dedication and your time and how much embodied energy goes into all your thoughtfulness, and we got to see it in action tonight, so thank you for that. So today, it's a little bit simpler, I think, than some of the things we've had to look at earlier today. We're here to highlight the unique position that we as a city find ourselves with the evolution of the Barbara's General Store site. So we thought that today was a chance to talk about the transformational potential of this site, and not so much to talk about what exactly is going to happen, but to understand what the potential of this site means to the city and as a gateway into our city, and to, I guess, in a way, write our new chapter of history. So as we see one iconic, historic, significant building, I guess, leave our port, there's the opportunity to create a new gateway that celebrates our surrounding history and to find our new place in creating our own history in the future. So just to look at this site, I think it's really important to kind of see where a historic project is beautiful in its passive sense, but what we have is this opportunity to see the site directly in the center, in the heart of the city core. We see it along Prince William Street here, but we also see that there's not a lot of activation. We do find people sitting on the leeward side here for the sailors, but trying to get out of the wind, but there's really no place to kind of activate. On the water side, there is quite a significant drop in the site, but there, again, it's really, you find yourself on the street, in the busy street, and not really activating with the site. Here's the alley in behind, again, a little shortcut, but really underutilized potential for what this site offers. Anything on that?
No, other than that, our office is now kitty corner to this site, so we get to actually firsthand watch this site and how people interact with it. But the opportunity, like Monica said, is pretty amazing, and we don't get excited about a lot of all our projects. Most of them, yes, but this one is very exciting in terms of the potential to change, I should say, and the impact it can. It's the beginning of the Uptown, really, if you're coming in, both as on a vehicle or as a visitor. So it's a confluence of so many things.
And because it finds itself right in the heart of the city, it's a chance to rethink the way we see ourselves and a chance to put what we want to be, the way we want to dream, the way we see ourselves as an evolving population, and the way we want to welcome people into our city. So these are some of the storied elements, we call them, but goals that we feel that this site could really highlight and that really resonated in our year of exploration with staff. So really it's at the hub in the heart of the city. It has an opportunity to be bold and iconic and a welcome to the city, the heart of the city. The second is a great site to bridge between Fundy Quay and St. John's Heritage District. So right now, in a way, it doesn't actually fall as a heritage property. So it's in the center of being surrounded by all of this great activity that's in constant change. It's a plaza for the people. We do think that a lot of projects are really great either for tourists or for citizens, but this is an opportunity to be really great for all the people, celebrating St. John's rich diversity by creating an active common space. And Stephen says, I must be from a witness protection program because I don't know where I am when I'm trying to give directions in the city. But this idea of this moment that you are here, kind of creating this center that you're able to tell people, hey, you have now arrived. This is a center where we can meet. And we think that there's an opportunity to have something that's illuminated. Right now, we don't go into the city, it's kind of dark, but we don't have anything festive, playful, imaginative that really activates all this, imagine sparkles, but year-round in this kind of moment. It is to create a cherished landmark for tourists and citizens. So it's only going to be a success if we love it and we all engage it, and it's something that people champion. Should have quality, modern, illuminated, activate the public realm, connect to city transit, and be a welcome center as a program is being explored. So very quickly, so I know you've had a long night, just to, in case you don't know where the site is, but I think it really is great to highlight how incredible the site actually is. It finds itself between the Heritage Conservation Area, the Fundy Quay, across from City Hall, the gateway to the city. This is just a prime site at the base of King. The sun paths allow sun to go around the site. You have views to Fundy Quay, views back to the Heritage District, view of City Hall, a bus stop. It's just, in some way, you couldn't ask for a better site to highlight all of the things that make up what St. John is. And we just bring up this slide in sections because I think it's important to see that if we have one of the challenges we have is accessibility and a way to kind of engage people in the very topographic nature of St. John. And you can see from on the bottom image where the laneway goes to King Street that you're almost in an 11 feet below grade change. So there's opportunity to engage this building at all different levels. And then the site here, we love that pedestrian flow, tourist flow, St. John transit flow, and vehicular flow all kind of culminate in this one zone. And it's an opportunity to see and be seen in this site. So we've been calling this project the Eddy. It's a place where all of the energies, all the diversity, all the public activity has this opportunity to meet as a gateway. It's just a transformational site. And now you're on the throes of a transformation in that site change. So we just wanted to, we're not saying anything you don't know. We just wanted you to see the site for how great the potential is for it. And
yeah, and we've been around, this will be our 13th year in business, not as long as Snoozies, but we still feel like really tied to the city. And, seeing this, we brought this, the park project up, which was an early third shift project that we did, but getting to see the impact of even these small moves throughout the city as we've been here. And, to add to Brent's update, our Wellington project for the St. John and Profits almost ready for occupancy for housing. So again, all these things in the city, we really believe in the city. And I think this is an opportunity for St. John, this site and this program really to, like Monica said, show the world that it's going to be accessible, that it's going to be exciting, and that there's a new tide turning, right? So this is a bit of a connection to our past.
it should celebrate our past. It isn't to take a piece away and then say that, okay, we just want to get into a contemporary world, and we're going to feel that with the transition of barbers. And I think it's an opportunity to look at the heritage around us in a new way, but a way that activates people to be part of that community and part of making that new history. So we're very excited. We believe at the Acre we are what we create, and that's all of us together. So thank you very much for just letting us highlight our love for this site. So.
Always exciting, as I say, to hear from you two. Does anyone have any questions for the team here? I know we're sort of talked out now.
No?
Okay, well, there
Thank you.
are a couple of recommendations. There are two motions listed in the kit there, so I would take them over. Okay, I got Councillor Killen and Councillor Hickey. All right, on the question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Well done, thank you so much. Looking forward to the evolution of our site moving forward. And that aligns with our brand now for the region, always moving forward, and that's us for sure. And I like the way you had that transition because it looks like it's got so much movement in that space, you know, when you drew it up there, so it's great. Anyways, thanks for coming tonight and appreciate your patience this evening, and it's all good, thanks. Okay, City Clerk, next item.
Next, Your Worship, 13.1, it's a report from Growth Committee, review of provisions governing the procedure and operation of the St. John Substandard Property Appeal Committee.
Chair of Growth, Councillor Killen, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to thank Pamela Bentley for putting together these notes, and I want to apologize to her because I am going to skip over them for time's sake here. So tonight we are bringing forward the response to a council referral from February 21st for Growth Committee to have the provisions governing the procedure and operation of St. John's Substandard Property Appeal Committee examined. Staff has reviewed the provisions and have 2 changes with the goal of encouraging more practicing lawyers to put their name forward for the committee. The 2 proposed changes are, number 1, an increase in remuneration of the committee member from $600 to $1,200 per day of the hearing, and 2, to reduce the number of years of experience to be a member of the committee from 4 to 2 years. So with that, I would take, I'll make a motion to accept the staff recommendation.
Okay, I got Councillor Hickey on the seconder. On the question? On the question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item?
Next item is 15.1. It's a request to present from Circular Materials Atlantic. Recommendation, refer to clerk to schedule presentation.
Okay, staff recommendation is to refer to clerk to schedule presentation. Yes, I got you there. Councillor Hickey's moving that. Need a seconder on the deputy on the question? All in favor? Oh, Councillor Harris, did you have a question?
No, sorry.
Okay, opposed? Motion carried. Next item?
Next is 15.2, a letter from Zero Waste Initiatives Education, request to present recommendation, refer to Chief Administrative Officer for follow-up.
The deputy, Councillor Harris, and then you got a question, Councillor Harris?
Yeah, just curious. I mean, I love both of these. The circular materials, the circular economy is absolutely in my wheelhouse, and it's something I love to get more presentation on. The Zero Waste Initiative, referring to CAO, can I just ask what the difference for perspective here into why we're trying to set up a presentation by one and not the other? Is it just a matter of legitimacy or a matter of initiative, or yeah?
Sure. Through you, Your Worship, we have been having ongoing discussions with Circular Materials, engaged quite heavily with them in the lead up to all the changes that will be happening from a regional perspective, or could potentially be happening, as it relates to the collection of recyclable materials. So well informed on that one, and I think it's appropriate for council to hear that presentation at this point in time. For the other one, we really wanted to engage just to get some insight, to understand if it's already part of something that we plan to undertake as part of our day-to-day operations or initiatives that we have underway. And once we do that initial touch point, if we feel that it's something to the benefit of council, then we may recommend that they come here subsequently.
Okay, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
The final item is a recommendation from Committee of the Whole with respect to terms of settlement with GE Barbers, Inc. And the proposed resolution reads that the city accept the terms of settlement with GE Barber, Inc. as presented to Committee of the Whole at its meeting held on June 12, 2023, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute any documents necessary in order to effect the said settlement.
Councillor Lowe, you moving that? Okay, I need a seconder. Deputy. On the question, Councillor Ogden.
Should I speak before I vote or after?
Oh, well, you can speak before you vote.
Okay. I'm against, I understand the site's going to be a great site for a new building, but I still think that we should put it out there to see if we can save the building with some type of organization to have it as a historic building, even if it's used privately. But it's part of our history. The Barbers were on Market Slip, and they were along the river, and they're still in business. So I'm going to vote against it because I don't want to destroy our history and our knowledge of who we are from the past.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll call the question. On the question, all in favor? Opposed? Councillor Ogden and Councillor Radwan and Councillor Sullivan. Motion carries. Okay, before we say adieu, and I ask Councillor Lowe to give me that motion, we all want to say happy birthday to Councillor Lowe. And what do you want for your birthday, Councillor? Yeah, we all know what you want, so happy birthday. It's coming up this week, I think, or maybe next week. But Councillor Hickey knows what he wants. Go ahead, Councillor Hickey. Okay, yeah, we're working on that, Councillor. Okay.
Councillor Lowe, for his 80th birthday, would like everyone to donate to hospice. And there's a link available on his Facebook page.
On his Facebook page.
And I would encourage everyone to check it out and please consider a donation.
Okay, that sounds interesting. 80 years old and almost in, still on Facebook. I love that. Thank you, Jerry. All right, Councillor Lowe, motion to adjourn. Okay, second it. Councillor Killen, on the question, all in favor? Good night. Thanks, everyone. Thanks to staff.